And so to give you the background, it's very science related, so it would have been very difficult for me to show you these things without any slides. So thank you for your patience and thank you for being here today. I see some new faces. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see some old faces that I love so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see Red Turtle is here. Welcome, Red Turtle. I am so grateful that you could join us in Montana. Such a bright light. So glad you're here. Simone, I'm glad you came today. And Cindy, you always are such a big help. So thank you guys. And I see new faces in the front row too, so welcome. I would like to invite, before we go into rooting in higher consciousness, I'd like to invite John to come up so that we can open with a small prayer and meditation. And John can play the flute. He is so incredibly gifted that I'm very grateful that he's willing to do this with us. So if you'll just take a deep breath in and open your palms and plant your feet, just breathe and focus on your breath. And as you breathe in, realize you're breathing in the breath of life. Mother Earth gives us this breath, and Father Sky. And as you breathe, breathe in fully and completely until you can't get one more sip of air in it. Feels like. And with each and every inhalation, feel how the breath feeds your spirit. And as you exhale, release into this space here and now, present. Great Spirit, Tinkashla, Wakatanka, Mahio, we come to you today in a very good way, and we are only asking for good things. We open our hearts and our minds and ask that as the messages come in today, that we can hear and understand and be given the wisdom to move forward in a good way. For the direction of the east, where the sun rises and the great awakening begins. Where the eagle flies and brings us clarity. And where Mother Earth's breath brings us strength. We ask for the direction of the south, where the wolf will bring us intelligence and how to live with community. We ask that with this information, that the spark that lies within us become a blaze of fire for others to light off of. Direction of the west, where the great bear who just went to rest brings us strength and courage. We ask for the healing of the waters that flow in Mother Earth's veins and within our veins to be ignited and healed into a higher state of vibration. Humbly ask for the direction of the north to come present and bring with it the wisdom of the buffalo. and brought us the chanupa so that we may pray in a good way. We ask in this direction that we firmly root in and feel our feet become like the roots of a tree growing out, to feel the heartbeat of Mother Earth so that our heart may beat in unison with hers. We must remember that we have to be her voice and stand for her and care for her as she sustains us and nurtures us and gives us all that we need. And Great Spirit, Creator of all things, big and small, we call in all the two-leggeds, all the four-leggeds, the multi-leggeds and the no-leggeds, the creepy crawlies, the plant nation, the mineral nation, the water nation, the swimming nation, the standing nation, the flying nation, and the star nation. May they be present with us today on this journey in this sacred hoop we call life. We ask this in the name of all that is. So it shall be. Amen. Ho!
Ho!
Thank you so much. Thank you. So how do we root in consciousness? And when we talk about consciousness, there are lots of different ways that consciousness can be interpreted. Consciousness can be interpreted in a way of, you see someone who's harming someone, and you think, well, it's where their consciousness is. You see someone like Mother Teresa, or Sitting Bull, and you see that their consciousness is expansive and large, and that they can't walk past someone in need, and they're always giving from their hearts. And they're always speaking in truth and honesty and integrity. So how do we root in a new consciousness, a higher consciousness, a consciousness where we can move out of war, we can move out of hatred, we can move out of harm, we can move out of control, and we can move into love and harmony and peace with all things? How many of you would love to see a world in which all walks of people, all animals, we all get along and respect each other? This is the higher consciousness. Native Americans were very much one of the peoples that stayed very, very close. And there are lots of indigenous people that have stayed very, very close to the Creator. And there are lots of cultures that have stayed close to the Creator. There are lots of cultures that now are focused on detachment, not being attached to the money and the houses and the cars and the things that we have, but being attached to what we're doing for our fellow humankind. So how can we root that? How can it become so rooted in us that we don't even think about it? It just becomes a natural flow. So if you look at how to root in the consciousness, I like what Lao Tzu says, and where's mine? The key to growth is the introduction of the higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness. Because we have moments that we're very conscious, don't we?
Yeah.
We have moments, but they're fleeting moments, aren't they? They come and then they go. They're almost elusive, and you think, how can I keep that? How can I walk in that every day? How can I walk in peace? How can I walk in harmony? How can I walk with love and kindness, always, no matter what's going on out here? Because I think we all agree that out here, we might not be seeing as much love and harmony and peace and support as we would like to. So how can we keep that within ourselves and be that? How many of you really want to know how to do that? You really want to know in your heart of hearts how to walk in peace. Wouldn't it be nice? How many of you have a job you don't necessarily like? Like the boss isn't that great, you know, the co-workers aren't that wonderful. Wouldn't it be nice if you brought the peace and the love to that space? How many of you would love to bring peace and love and harmony into your workspace? Yes, I agree. And this is what you can do. You have it within you. Every single one of us. Some of us have been just a wee bit misled. Just a wee bit. So when we look at how to root in this consciousness, how many of you have heard of Nikola Tesla? How many? If you haven't, I would encourage you very strongly to Google him and to look at his work. He was way ahead of his time. But he says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Because science has now proven that we're all energy. We're a very minute part of physical matter. So we have something separate from this physical being that does something and goes somewhere and does something, right? There's only 2 belief systems that don't believe that we have something separate than this, and that we're just here for a moment and it's fleeting and it's gone and you're done. Okay? So most belief systems do believe that we have a separate spirit or soul. So if we are vibration and we're energy, then we vibrate at a certain level. And if you look at quantum physics, which I love, and it's now finally catching up with what spiritual teachers have been teaching for centuries and centuries and centuries, and that is if we can change our frequency, we can change the world. If we can change our frequency, we can open up gifts that lie within us that are dormant. If we can change our frequency, we can open up parts of our brain that we don't really use. Like right now, we don't use the prefrontal cortex very much. But in that prefrontal cortex lies a tremendous amount of power and secrets. So if we can move from what is called the lower brain into the higher brain, or the prefrontal cortex, or we find a way to do that, then we can truly step into what many spiritual books talk about, but like Jesus said, even you shall do greater things than I. And when we think about that, we go, now wait a minute. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't been able to accomplish that quite yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on it on a daily basis. But when you think about the power that lies within you, because the kingdom of God is within you, it's the spark that is in you. You're a part of that, and that is a part of you. It is not a separation. And this is where we've gotten misled, is we have come to the conclusion of this is us, and somewhere way out there is God, the creator, Buddha, whatever you call the source of all things. But when we finally realize that we are all one, and I'm just as connected to you and you and you, all of you. And I'm connected to every four-legged. I'm connected to everything that's on this planet. I'm connected to the star nation. I'm connected to it all. And I'm connected to the creator of all things. Because that spark is within me. So to ignite that spark and change our brain structure, and right now we are going through a lot of changes. I don't know how many of you are feeling changes and shifts. Okay. Well, some of us are feeling changes and shifts because it is that time of year that there's a lot of shifting going on. I don't know if you know this, but this holiday season is amazing. However, did you know that suicide rates go up threefold during the holiday time? Threefold. So there's also a lot of pain because people have lost loved ones at that time, spouses, partners, they've lost children, they've lost parents, and it pulls them into this space of a deep longing and missing. But what if we found a way that if we were able to unlock the secrets within our brain that we only use about 10%, what if we could then no longer feel that tremendous amount of separation from our loved ones that have crossed over into the star nation? What if we could actually feel them? How many of you have heard somebody say, oh, I feel my mom, she's with me all the time? How many of you have heard somebody, or I feel my dad, he's with me all the time, or I feel my friend who crossed over and she's with me all the time? So they're there. It's just we can only see about 1% of the visual spectrum. We can only hear about 1% of the visual spectrum, or hear about 1% of the auditorial spectrum. So if you can't see or hear, it's very difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to stay connected because we like the physical. We're physical creatures. We grow when we touch. We grow when we hug. We grow. And how many of you are noticing that more and more people are removing themselves from touch? I've actually reached out to touch someone and they flinch. So we have moved away from each other. We have been taught that this is mine and that's yours. My house, your house. What if we moved into a way of thinking that it wasn't mine and yours, but it was ours? Would y'all like that? The reason why control dramas go on and the reason why there's a lot of greed is because there's a lack mentality. There is, oh my gosh, if you have something, then I get less. But that's not true because there's abundance in all things. So when we're rooting in that consciousness, one of the things that you'll start noticing is that when you root in the higher consciousness, you start moving away from the things that are physical, meaning away from, I want a new car. I want a new car every 2 years. I want a bigger house. I want a bigger this. I want a bigger that. And it moves away from material focus into more ecological and humanitarian issues. So you start being driven by standing up for Mother Earth. You start being driven by our oceans are ravaged with plastic. They're dying. Our sea life is at a phenomenal rate in decline. Do you realize if we lose our phytoplankton, that that's where everything stems from? Human life won't be able to continue. If we keep poisoning our waters and our air and our skies and our food, then how can we survive if we are the ones that are doing this? So you start really beginning to step up and use your voice. And it's not done in a way of guns and knives and hatred and fighting. It's done with this. Where one voice will rise, many will follow. Martin Luther King Jr. changed the world by using this. Native Americans use this. But unfortunately, the consciousness was very different between the people that came and the people that were already here. Does that make sense? And so we fear what we don't understand. Is this not true? If we don't understand, it automatically elicits fear in us. And I think that's because we're taught when we're little, if something, that's going to hurt you. That's going to burn you. Don't do that, you'll fall. So we as parents instill this in our little ones. Not because we're trying to do something wrong, but because we're trying to protect them. But then it harvests itself within our energetic flow. And as we get older, all of a sudden, we're thinking in terms of fear. If something is different or we don't understand it, we fear it. I'll give you an example. There's been a tremendous amount, and science has proven it, and I realize that this is a very touchy subject, so if it resonates with you, take it. If it doesn't, please don't. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm only here to ask you the question. Everything. So there's been a lot of what you would call extraterrestrial activity, and people are fearful. They immediately are like, shoot it, kill it, get rid of it. Oh! Why? Because it looks different, travels different, speaks different, so it's different than us, so let's kill it. Now, does that make much sense if you really just think about it? If you just walked up to somebody and they were different from you, would you just pull out a gun and shoot them and be like, you're different than me? That's it, you're done. You're done. Do you understand? But we are inundated with this fear of if we don't know it, if we don't understand it, be fearful of it. So how can you root in higher consciousness if you're battling in the fear mentality? You can't. And this is why a lot of the news, a lot of the newspapers, a lot of the media is all focused on fear-based. Think about what you see on TV. It's fear-based. Think about what you read in the newspaper. It's fear-based. It's fear, 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 fear. Because if we can keep you in a fear vibration, fear has a vibration. It has a Hertz vibration. So like if you were here last week, we talked about fear and the sound of fear and 19 Hertz and what that looked like. And that when a lion roared right before they attacked, it was at 17 Hertz and it would completely paralyze and disorient a human being or any other creature. It's a different Hertz. It's a different vibration, right? So if we're looking at vibration, and we are vibration, then it would make sense to root in a higher consciousness. Then we need to look at our vibration. We need to look at that and see where that's at. And where are we at? We need to, how many of you would love it if you didn't hear anything that made you afraid for the next 5 years? You didn't see it, you didn't hear it, you didn't know it, you didn't think about it. You had no fear. How many of you would be living a completely different life if you had no fear? None. You would be different, you would act different, you would think different, you would speak differently, you would stand up differently, you would present yourself and posture yourself in a completely different way. So what if we can do that while we're in human form? What if that's possible? So if you look at 2 Timothy, it says, and that's very difficult to read, by the way, just to let you know. It says, for the... you read it, because I can't read it
here. It says, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline.
Power, love, and self-discipline. How many of you have been led to believe you don't have power? Honestly. How many of you have been led? I don't make a difference. One person can't make the difference. I don't have power. That is a lie. You do make a difference. Everything that you do affects everybody around you and everything around you, and it vibrates out and it hurts. So if we were given the power to do this, then why are we not doing it? Because we get busy, right? And we start looking at the news, and we start listening to the radio, and we start looking at the media, and we start watching TV, and we, without even realizing it. I know, because how many of you ever watch Criminal Minds or NCIS or any, okay, my favorite shows before, they were my favorite shows. You know, I didn't watch TV other than that. That was it. I was not a TV addict. I sat down and those were my shows. I liked them because I liked to figure them out before the people did. I was like, oh, I got it. That's the person that did it. So I loved it. But it doesn't have a really high vibration. It's not all about love and peace and harmony. It's typically murder and killing. And so what I didn't realize is that when I started pulling away from that, and I said, wait a minute, if I want to raise my vibration, how can I do that if I'm inundating myself with seeing and hearing negativity in a fear way? So I said, okay, I'm going to stop doing it. Do you know how much I craved that for the first several weeks? Like, I craved to sit down and watch Shamar on Criminal Minds. He's beautiful. That's all I say. He's gorgeous. He's beautiful. I love him. You know, beautiful man. Beautiful, beautiful. Right? And I missed it. I missed seeing it. I missed figuring it out. But do you know what? I quit watching it for a little bit of time, and then I went back and I tried to watch it. And you know what I found? I didn't like it. Once I had stopped for a moment and I focused on disciplining myself to move into a new consciousness, a different consciousness, and I tried to go back and see the things that I had watched before, I was like, why would I like that? Why would I? But see, we get into this comfort zone, right? We start doing it, we like it, and then before we realize it, so here's what I invite you to do. Just for the next 2 weeks, cut out everything that is showing you fear, anger, rage, hatred, murder, death. Remove it from your life. Shut the TV off. Shut the computer down. Your phones. I see this all the time. People are losing our connection with each other because we're here. I remember when we used to, how many of you used to remember when we went to the doctor's office or to the airport or wherever, you'd sit down and you'd start talking to whoever was next to you. How many of you remember that time? Anybody remember that time? Okay, now you go and what's happening?
They're all engaged.
They're in their phone, nobody's talking to anybody. So if we want to shift, we have to be disciplined, what Timothy says. Disciplined because we were given the power, but we have the power, but if you don't discipline it, what are you going to do with it?
Lose it.
You're going to lose it because you don't have it. If you're not disciplined to really say, no, I do not want that as part of my frequency. I don't want to think about that. How many of you have seen something and you wish you never saw it because it keeps popping up in your head? Go ahead, raise your hand. Oh my gosh, I'm telling you.
Everybody.
You can never erase the picture. I was married at one time, and my former husband's brother really had a weird sense of humor, and he would send things on the email, and my former husband would click on it, and there was one picture that I'll never forget that I still haven't been able to erase from my mind, and I've been divorced for 10 years.
All over the news, what we're seeing is that concern about what has gone on in Ferguson. It's hard to avoid it. And now there's a new mnemonic, I guess, hands up, don't shoot. There's a better one that we can I don't know where, we can just go to, and that is hands up, don't shoot. And it's really and truly an opportunity to change the You're much more
Mentality.
eloquent than I am on this. Explain it to them.
Well, here's what I've noticed, and this is just my take, and you can take it or you can, thank you so much. You can take it or not take it. For some of you who know this, this is going to be old news, and for some of you who've never heard this will be new news. There are 6 companies, corporations that are in charge of the media, right? So if all the media is showing us is things like Ferguson and New York City, and I mean, it's happening all over, but that's what we're being inundated with. Here's my take on this. My take on it is that they're trying to move us into a civil uprising. This is just my take on it. I'm not saying that you have to believe this, but I believe that there is powers at hand that want us to civilly uprise so that they can usher in martial law.
Oh, yeah.
And that without a civil uprising, they can't usher in that martial law. So they're putting in front of your face constantly humanitarian issues. You're killing my brothers and my sisters, and they're innocent. Now, who would be incensed at that? Anybody, right? Especially when you start talking about younger people, like teenage people that are being murdered, or a guy that was just breaking up a fight and he was killed by the police. Do you see? So what it leads you to believe is, why are we being shown that, and why are we being inundated with that vibratory frequency constantly? Because A, it's fear, and B, it is, we want you to do something and you're not doing it, so we're going to keep shoving things in your face until you do what we want you to do.
Yeah.
We're going to slam it in front of you, we're going to show it to you day and night, we're going to put it on Facebook, we're going to put it in the news, we're going to put it on the radio, we're going to inundate with you 24 hours a day until you finally get up and you say, this is enough, and you take up arms.
And it causes separation and not unity.
Yeah.
What is the key there?
Fear.
United we stand, but divided we fall. You strip away our skin and we are all the same. I don't care if you're black, if you're white, if you're yellow, or if you're red. Now is the time for the condor and the eagle to fly together, when all walks sit around that drum and we play and we sing and we pray and we change this world. You can change it. I want you to know you can change this world. If you think you can't, you're right. But I'm going to ask you the question if you can. In Romans, it says that it's through the renewing of the mind. The renewing of the mind. So if we start looking at the mind and the capabilities of the mind, everybody in here kind of knows that we only use a very small portion, right? I don't need to go into depth about that. So we use a small portion of our brain. Dolphins use about 20%, and we use about 10%, okay? And we don't use certain lobes of our brain. But what if, when we're rooting in this consciousness, this new vibration, this shift, this change, we can activate not only our dormant DNA, which scientists were calling junk DNA for a long time, and now they're like, oh no, it actually does something. I just always look and say, do you think that you're smarter than the creator of all things? That's ego. That's man's ego right there. That is our ego saying, I can do it better than the creator of all things. So if we can unlock these parts of our brain and we can activate these dormant strands of DNA, what do? It changes your vibratory frequency. So if you, again, that's hard to read. Okay, one second. I'm going to do something very, very quickly so that you guys can see that, because I really want you to read that. Just a second.
Technical difficulties today. It's all good.
Red, maybe?
I'm going to change that to white.
Oh, beautiful.
That way you can see it.
Nice.
Can you see
Let
that?
there be
Yeah,
light.
I see it.
Much better,
It's still
right?
highlighted. Yeah.
Not too bad. That's good. Okay, so we're going to talk about brain frequencies. Your heart sends out a frequency. Your brain, all your organs, everything, your being sends out a frequency. But your brain sends out a frequency. And so our frequency from our brain actually is weaker than our frequency from our heart. But since we're talking about renewing and rooting in the consciousness, we root the consciousness into our heart. But we must first talk about the mind. So, the mind. Brain frequencies and their related states of consciousness have been extensively researched and established by scientists. If you want to Google any of this, please feel free. This was actually done at a medical center, Whale Medical Center, just to let you know. High brain frequencies are associated with hypertension, stress, increased heart rate, and high blood pressure. So high brain frequencies are related to, now why is the brain all of a sudden making us stressed out? Right? How many of you spin in your brain? You spin in your head. We all do. You lay down to go to sleep at night and you can't go to sleep because you're thinking and thinking and thinking. You're spinning. So a high brain frequency will get you some health issues. It also not only gets you stress and anxiety, it also gets you high blood pressure, increased heart rate. They can increase blood flow to the muscles along with increased muscle tension, oxygen consumption, and cortisone production. Now, in the direct opposite of that is a low brain frequency, okay? A low brain frequency reduces blood flow to the skin and organs. Low frequencies induce relaxation or hypotension and can reduce the heart rate and blood pressure. Low brain frequencies reduce the blood flow to muscles and reduce muscle tension, oxygen consumption, cortisone, and glucose consumption. Glucose is what? Diabetes. Okay? So I want you to start making a connection. High brain frequencies are causing us health issues, and low brain frequencies are doing the exact opposite of that. So, and diabetes seems to be a huge issue, especially in my culture, but across the world. We have people everywhere. We have children at 4 years old being diagnosed, not with type 1 diabetes, but type 2. Type 2. Does it have anything to do with the 45 grams of sugar in a Coke that you're giving a 2-year-old?
Absolutely.
Not even real sugar either.
You know, or the high fructose corn syrup, or so. And we can go into that another time since we're focused on the brain. But I'm just letting you know that you really, as we root in this consciousness, what you'll notice is you start having differences in your being, your health, your wellness, your stress, your tension, your blood pressure, diabetes. All of a sudden, if we're vibrating in a different hertz, illness can't set in. You have to be at a lower frequency for illness to set in. So if you look up here, increased blood flow to the skin and to the organs. And that's low frequencies. Click to the next one, Lynn. Now this is a lot of information. I'm a facilitator for the Monroe Institute. The Monroe Institute studied brain wave activity for many, 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 many years and did brain mapping to find out what the different brain waves would do for us, okay? So you have several different brain waves, just to let you know. So this talks about high beta. And I'm just gonna, instead of reading it all to you, I'm gonna pick out points for you, okay? So if you are in a high beta, then you're looking at about 25 cycles per second. It's hypertensive, it's a hyperactive state. It's often presented with anxiety and panic. PTSD would be an example of a high beta frequency, where you're hypervigilant, you're looking around. This can be caused because you were a soldier in war. This can be caused because you were a woman who was raped or traumatized in some way. You were a child that was harmed. And so you became what it's called hypervigilant. And so this is the high beta brain frequencies. The regular beta frequencies and the lower beta range between 14 and 25 cycles per second. The attention of the self is focused on external affairs. Now this is one of the issues. How can we root in consciousness if we're always externally looking? How many of you were ever told that if you focused on yourself, you were selfish? This is a paradigm that needs to be broken, because it's the greatest thing that you can do for humanity, is to focus on yourself and to focus. When you change you and you become the change that you wish to see in the world, as Gandhi puts it, the world changes. So when you become the change, now you're vibrating at a different level. Energy interacts with energy, right? So if I'm vibrating at a frequency and I come into Mia's path and she's vibrating at a different frequency, we're either going to come to a certain frequency together, or she's going to agitate me, or I'm going to agitate her, and we're going to split. We're just going to get out of each other's energetic flow. So when you're in a beta, that is where you are more externally extroverted activities, not an internal. Then you have your alpha brain frequencies, which generate between 7.8 and 14 cycles per second. Okay, these slower frequencies are conducive to the advancement of skills of introvert activities, such as meditation, telepathy, intuitive awareness, and the spiritual states of consciousness. The higher theta range of up to 14 cycles per second is beneficial for effective and relaxed interactions with others, as our extrovert activities are controlled by our introvert thinking. How many of you understand that? So if I'm dealing with somebody, let's say there's a disagreement, and we're having a disagreement. The way I handle that disagreement is based on my internal place, right? Even though it's an external thing that's going on, I'm responding because of my internal frequency. So either I'm going to respond. How many of you, somebody yelled at you? Everybody in the room, right? Somebody's yelled at you, raised their voice, screamed at you, did. How many of you immediately wanted to go, what? You just wanted to come right back at them. Frequency initiates the same frequency. So if you can ground in a higher consciousness in your internal frequency, then when an external frequency comes at you, you are the one that's setting the pace. You're not being reactive. You're being proactive. So it's all here. And science hasn't been able to really study the brain as much. It's getting better at studying the brain, but there's a lot of things that they don't understand about the brain that they can't really put their finger on because our science hasn't evolved to that place yet. So you have these frequencies, but you also have these frequencies. Theta brain frequency. Now theta is where meditation, deep states or meditation will occur, is in a theta state. So it's when, if you come to meditation and you'll hear me guide you into deep relaxation, what I'm doing is I'm using binaural beats, first of all. It's called hemisync synchronization. And what that is it's to link your right and your left hemispheres together, number one, and it's to change your frequency, which is the length of your brainwave activity, into a theta state. And we do this by using binaural beats. Binaural beats are embedded into music. And it's very, very, very strong, especially if you listen to it with headphones. And I'll tell you just a brief. So if I put a beat of 104 in your right ear, and it's embedded in the music, so you're just listening to music, you don't even really know. I put 104 in one ear, and I put 100 in the other ear. My brain syncs it up at a 4 hertz. Okay? The difference between 100 and 104. So it puts me into a very deep state of theta. All right? So when we can get in that theta state, we can access parts of our intuition, or the spark that lies within us, or the kingdom of God that is within us. There's so many cultures that use different terminology for it. But when you can do that, then you can access information that isn't readily available to you yet, until you can root in that consciousness. Okay? So if you look at the theta brain state, and how can we root theta in if we're just walking around every day? How can we stay in a theta state? Because if we're walking around, we're typically in beta. Okay? If we're walking around, talking with each other, doing things. So how can we root this in? Some people do it through different techniques, like shamanic techniques. Some people will use meditation on a daily basis, being disciplined, getting up in the morning and meditating, in the evening meditating, and learning how to keep that state throughout the day. It's kind of like, anybody been around the Dalai Lama? How many of you just are like, oh, I could just stay here? Because he's rooted in that higher consciousness. So he's pulling you into that vibratory frequency instead of allowing himself to be pulled into your frequency. Does that make a little bit more sense? So with the theta state, some people will use hypnosis to learn how to stay in that state. What I will tell you is, once you reach that state and you feel it, you can reach that state at any moment just by going back to what you felt in your breath. So I can be standing in front of you and I can be in theta state. I can be walking around and I can be in theta state. And theta is where we have less anxiety, no panic. Our organs are being rejuvenated, refilled. Okay? Our life force is being enhanced. How many of you wake up in the morning sometimes and you're like, oh, I'm so exhausted? Yeah, how many of you done that? Yeah, a lot, right? What if all of a sudden you could get to a theta state and you could feel re-energized within 15 minutes, just that fast? And I'm talking about re-energized. I'm talking about feeling like you just took on the world and you're like, this is the best day of my entire life. So how can we root that in? Well, we can root it in from a couple of different things. But the one thing that I want to look at is I want to very briefly give you a really small, because this goes into detail. Flip to the next one. Yes. So here is delta, theta, alpha, and beta. These are all the different things. So if you're in delta, profound relaxation, reduction of pain and emotional distress and sleep. Theta, dreaming, trance, rapid learning, self-hypnosis, altered states of consciousness. Alpha, relaxing, meditation, balancing, healing, and feeling assimilated. And beta, invigorating, stimulating, this is where we're at most of the time. Okay, it's beta. So we want to figure out how we can go from here more to here or to here and stay in those places where our human body, our physical body gets healed, right? But also our mind gets to relax and move into a different vibration. You can't sustain a vibration. At first it'll be difficult. You'll step in and you step out of it. Does that make sense? Like you'll step into theta and then you'll step out. You'll step into theta and then you'll step out. But you'll feel it. You go, oh, okay, I know when I'm in theta. So the key is when you feel it and you know it, and you go, this is theta, the more you step into theta, the more you will root that in. Does that make sense to you? So it's kind of like it becomes a habit. It takes about 21 days to create a habit. Start smoking, you smoke 21 days in a row, you got a habit. Start drinking, you drink 21 days in a row, you got a habit. Get up in the morning, go to the gym, 21 days in a row, you got a habit. So habits can be positive or they can be less than positive, right? But if we step into theta, the more we step into that theta state, the more we can root it in and the more we can stay in that state. Flip to the next one. Let's go. So there are different types of consciousness. And this came from the Whale Medical Center as well. And so you have trans-universal consciousness, which we're talking about the essence versus the ego. How many of you know what ego is? How many of you seen ego? How many of you know you've got an ego? You know, everybody's got an ego. Everybody does. We all have ego. Because we need it. Why? Because if somebody's coming at me, oh, I need my ego. I don't need to be like, oh. You know, I need my ego. My ego will come out to protect me, right? So this talks a lot about the essence, which is your spirit, your soul, versus the ego. All right? So if you're here in the trance, the self is in complete fusion or union with the universal consciousness. Now, another word for universal consciousness can be God. It can be Buddha. It can be whatever the source is that you call Gaia. Can be. But it's the universal consciousness. An eternal, infinite state of existence outside of the human body. A fully conscious state where the self is absorbed in a vast and timeless space and where intense, sustaining currents of energy flow. Chi, prana, which is your internal energy flow, continuously. The self is dissolved. So this is trans-universal consciousness. Flip to the next one. This is universal consciousness, and that is a 90-10. So you're 90% in your essence and your spirit and your soul. You're 10% in your ego. The self is engaged in astral or time travel to, or in other domains, realities, matrices, or universes. A point source of consciousness, energy, light, and love, interacting with or witnessing other spiritual entities in time. This is universal, okay? Flip to the next one. Now, if you do want to look it up, that's why I keep putting this link down here. So it's incredibly scientific, you guys. And if I took you really deep into the science, you would just go die. So we're going to break it down to a very bite-sized piece that we can understand, we can chew on, and we can do. So spiritual consciousness is 85% essence versus 15% ego. The self experiences a very high blissful state in the body and down on the earth, a state where one's body receives current or waves of cosmic energy, and the self is in tune with the universal transmission of cosmic love, energy, divine grace, chi, prana, wisdom, knowledge, and power. Flip to the next one. Then there's the professional consciousness, 75-25. The self is absorbed and preoccupied with the pleasurable activities to do with one's profession, work, relationships, sports, hobbies, and other physical, mental, intellectual, or metaphysical interests. The self is doing what it knows how to do and likes to do best. How many of you bury yourself in work? I'll tell you, I get really, really stressed out. I will work like a fiend because it helps me. It's my comfort zone, right? So, and there are other states, but the states they move down more into the negative states of thinking. So I don't want to really go into that. Flip to the next one, Scout.
Ooh.
Salvatio frequencies. Okay, so we talked about binaural beats. How many of you know Salvatio frequencies? Awesome. We went through this a little bit last week. So Salvatio frequencies are different hertz that are played to you in music, and that will help you to sustain different states of awareness. So if I want to awaken and root in my consciousness, number one, I probably, if I have a hard time meditating, using binaural beats or hemisync would probably be a really good thing to do. I'm using Salvatio frequencies. 852 here, awakening intuition and returning to spiritual order. The ability to see through the illusions of your life, such as hidden agendas of people. How many of you would just like to know? Like I do, I want transparency. I want when somebody walks up, I want transparency. I don't want somebody to put me on. I don't want somebody to blow smoke. Just transparency. So at 852, it helps you to see the hidden agendas of people, places, and things. It opens up a person for communication with the all-embracing spirit and raises awareness and lets you return to spiritual order. So, these are frequencies. How many of you, when you were younger, you heard do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do? It's based on the Salvatio frequencies. How many of you know that the frequency of the music that you're listening to is actually disharmonious and it hurts your physical body? Yep. Absolutely. So, what they did is back in 1952, and you can Google this, they changed all music to a disharmonious flow. So they took it out of the Salvatio frequencies and put it into a flow that doesn't really flow with your energetic components. Okay? So how many of you listen to music and it can really lift you up? And how many of you can listen to a song and it really tears you out of your frame?
Oh, yeah.
If you don't, you haven't had a teenager yet, ride it in your phone. I'm telling you, I have a son and he turns on the radio and within minutes I'm just irritated. Very irritated. But it's the frequency, right? So everything that we see, we hear, we allow in our influence is going to influence your energy flow. Why are you letting them do it? Why are you letting them do it? Why are you letting somebody come in and be the garden to your garden? If every positive thought that we have plants a flower, and every negative thought that we have plants a weed, what would your garden look like? Think about it. What would your garden look like? Do not allow somebody else to come in and be the gardener to your garden. Do not allow them to plant the seeds in your head that are negative, negative about yourself, negative about the life, negative about the world, negative about, do not allow that to happen. You're in charge. But it takes discipline. You cannot root in higher consciousness. I repeat, you cannot root in higher consciousness if you are not disciplined.
Amen.
You can't. So just like, how many of you go to the gym or you work out in some way, yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong or karate, or you go to the gym and you spin or do aerobics or, okay, how many of you do that on a regular basis? Like, you know, on these days, this is when I'm going, this is when I'm doing my thing. How many of you know that? So if you want to change and you want to root in consciousness, then you have to also be disciplined enough to say, I'm going to look up salvatio frequencies. I'm going to work with binaural beats. I'm going to meditate every day at a certain time so that I can learn who I am fully and not what everybody else has told me who I am. Our parents start telling us who we are as soon as we're born. What we can do, what we can't do, what's possible, what's impossible. Then our teachers, our doctors, our lawyers, our preachers, our friends, and our family just reinforce it. So how can you break the confines of the mind that had been put into a glass prison? You must go internally and work from there. And you will be the change you wish to see. Do not let them lie to you. Do not let them convince you you're a lesson. Do not inundate yourself with negativity. Think about, we all have somebody we adore in our life. We all have somebody we adore. Think about if that person was a child, a little child, would you be letting them listen to what you're listening to? Would you be watching what you're watching with that child? We have to learn to love ourselves. And what we've learned is the exact opposite. We've learned to work 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week. We've learned to show up whether we're sick. We've learned that no matter what, we push our bodies beyond the physical limits. We do not nurture our minds. We do not nurture our bodies. We do not nurture our spiritual growth. And then we wonder why our life is where it's at. All I'm asking you is if I said something today that resonated and you went, that makes sense. In a strange, weird way, it makes sense. Start researching it. Start meditating. Start working on rooting that consciousness in, because it starts with the mind, but it does not end there. It has to get here. So we're disciplining the mind so we can root in the heart space, so that this world can be the world we want to live in, which is filled with peace and love, where every little girl knows she's perfect and beautiful, no matter what her size, her weight, or what she looks like, where every male knows that he's incredibly strong and he has no reason that he needs to prove it. Wouldn't that be a beautiful place? And we can do it. But it's going to take discipline.
Just wanted to share with the group that there is an app that you can use if you want to get into the binaural meditation type thing that has the different types of theta waves and so forth you were just speaking about, and it's called Brain Waves. So for whatever that's worth, if you want to go into that, get Brain Waves, listen to that every day, and you can start on this process of discipline.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cindy. You can also YouTube it, believe it or not. You can YouTube salvatio frequencies. You can also YouTube chemisync or binaural beats, and it'll give you a meditation to sit and listen to. But I will tell you, if you want something different, you have to do what?
Show up.
You have to do something different. Definition of insanity, keep doing the same thing and expect different results. You just keep doing the same thing. I'm not getting out of life what I want, but I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. I'm going to keep doing the same thing. If you want something different, you have to do something different. And today, I'm asking you to do something different. Take into consideration that you are a powerful spiritual being having a human experience, and that within your human self, you can unlock gifts. Every spiritual book talks about them. The gifts, whether you call it the gifts of the Spirit, the Bhagavad Gita talks about it, the Quran talks about it, we all have gifts. Let's go out and start unwrapping them.
It's Christmas.
It is Christmas.
Hey.
Yes, it is. So Ram Dass, I love him, and he says that, remember, we are all affecting the world every moment, whether we mean to or not. Our actions and states of mind matter because we're so deeply interconnected with one another. Working on our own consciousness is the most important thing that we are doing at any moment. And being love is the supreme creative act. So I invite you. I do. I invite you. I ask you. Will you walk with me on this journey? Let's do it together. Sometimes it's hard to do it alone. You know, it's hard to say, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to meditate every day at this time. But if you've got a partner that's getting up and meditating, it's so easy because then you guys can talk about it afterwards. So I encourage you to pair up. Pair up. Facebook it. Twitter it.
Yeah.
If you're going to use something like that, do it in positive ways. Hey, I had a meditation today, and I'm going to send it to Scout because Scout and I meditate all the time, and I'm going to tell her what my meditation was about, and she's going to tell me about hers. And it's a form of encouragement. It's kind of like working out because you are. You're working out what? You're working out your brain.
Inner size. Inner size.
Yes, you're inner-sizing. You're inner-sizing, not exercising. Our next soul medicine is on December 21st. We will complete our lesson of seeing the lessons. It'll be part 6 next 2 weeks, December 21st. Okay? I want to thank you because you showed up today. You didn't have to. You could have been doing anything else. You could have been laying in bed having a cup of tea. You could be outside on this incredibly beautiful, beautiful day. Hiking, biking, swimming. You could be doing anything. But you chose to work on your spiritual health. And to me, there's no greater calling than that. So thank you. And thank you for being here and allowing me to guide you just a little bit. And as I said, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to make you question. So if you'll take a deep breath in, and John, will you come up and play a little bit while we end with our meditation and prayer? Oh, okay. I forgot. John's going to play for a moment before we close. I apologize. I always do this, and they always have to say your name too. She's going to pass the basket. This place does operate off donations. If we don't have donations, we will not be here. We can't pay the rent. If you don't have anything, please do not give. And do not feel one piece of guilt for it. If you can give, please give what you feel. It's got to be in your heart. This is not about making you do something and creating karma. As you breathe, breathe in full completion, fully expanding the stomach and the chest, and exhaling into the space of here, into your completely empty. And as you relax into this space, allow all the messages to come to you that need to be brought specifically to you. And as you breathe, breathe in gratitude and thanksgiving and love that flows so freely to you from the Creator. And as you allow that love and that gratitude to fill your internal space, begin to allow it to flow over you and through you and out from you. Creator, Mahio, Tinkashala Wakatanka, hear us as we lift our voices and our minds and our hearts to you, Great Spirit. We sit here today with open hearts and minds, focused on rooting in the higher consciousness, the God mind. Rooting in the consciousness of love and awareness and kindness and joy. Where our footsteps become so gentle that they caress Mother Earth. Bring us a deep understanding of ourselves and who we are and the spark that lies within us that is a part of you and that we are too. And Great Spirit, give us the strength and the courage and the intelligence and the wisdom and the clarity and the vision and the strength to change ourselves so we may change this world on a massive scale. Help us to remember who we are and why we are here and that we do make a difference every day. Help us to learn to love ourselves profoundly. And that when we love ourselves to those depths, we love all of our brothers and our sisters, all of the two-leggeds, the four-leggeds, the multi-leggeds, and the no-leggeds, the creepy crawlies, the plant nation, the mineral nation, the water nation, the swimming nation, the standing nation that brings us oxygen, the flying nation, and the star nation. Creator, help us to decipher through the information that was brought to us today that is science-driven, but we know in our heart of hearts that it's all for spiritual advancement. And Great Spirit, as we continue to breathe in the breath of life, we breathe in the flow of unconditional love. We walk out these doors today until we come together again and our paths cross. May we vibrate love and peace and kindness. And Great Spirit, where two or more are gathered, there you are, and we are here with many, and we are multiplied, and we send this love out through the waters and through the air, and we send it to the leaders around the world. May their consciousness be shifted and changed in a good way. Tinkashala, hear us as we ask that this love pierce their hearts and they become mindful and aware of how every decision affects humankind as well as our Earth Mother. As we connect with our breath and with you, we can feel the flow so gentle, so profound within each one of us. Great Spirit, we give thanks today for every single person that is here and all those that could not be here. We ask for their healing to be taking place today at this moment. Great Spirit, we know we could not be here without the support of our community, and we give thanks for every single donation that has come in, and we ask that it be blessed and multiplied and returned to the hands 1,000 times. And we ask for the blessings of those that may not have the financial abundance to give. We ask that you bring them what they need in peace and financial flow. As we walk out into the earth, we ask that we are the change we wish to see within it. We ask this in the name of all that is, so it shall be. Amen. Ho!